So last night, not a lot of sports, I would say in general, going and taking place over the weekend. But on Sunday night, I put on the Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, Oprah interview, and I was flipping back and forth a couple of times with the All-Star game. And then the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle interview ended, and then I went and watched the second half a little bit of the All-Star game. And I thought this was interesting. I polled my audience on Twitter. I said, what are you watching right now? This was while both the NBA All-Star game was on and also the interview with Oprah with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. And I thought it was interesting. Tens of thousands of you voted. And I went ahead and froze it right when the interview ended. And 13% of you were watching the NBA All-Star game in my audience. 11% of you were watching the Meghan Markle Oprah interview, and 76% of you were watching something else. So I just think it's interesting in a fragmented era. To me, the vast majority of people were tweeting about the Meghan Markle interview or the NBA All-Star game. That's the people that I follow. And then also there were a lot of people who watched Coming to America over the weekend, the sequel to the original Coming to America movie. I haven't seen it yet. And it's Coming to the number 2 as opposed to T.O., the sequel of Coming to America. I haven't seen it yet because on Saturday I went camping with my boys and it was about 20 degrees on Saturday night. And I talked about this a little bit beforehand, but it's amazing the degree to which. So we had a basketball court where we were camping. One of my sons goes to a private school in Nashville, and it was their location. They have like a up in the mountains, a little bit headed towards the eastern part of the state of Tennessee. For people who know the geography of the state of Tennessee, it becomes more mountainous. And in the early parts of the mountains in East Tennessee, the school has a farm, a lot of land where you can camp, and they do a camp for dads and sons every year. So I took all 3 of my boys. So I've got my 7th grader, my 4th grader, and my kindergartner, all 3 there. And they have a full court outdoor basketball goal. And all the kids are playing basketball by and large a great deal. And first of all, it's like 20 degrees for camping. And so in the middle of the night, my 6-year-old just comes over and he's like, "Dad, I'm cold. Can I get into your sleeping bag?" So if you've ever had like a 6-year-old kid, he's small, but he's like, wrapped up and cold, and he's wrapped up in my blanket. And so you get woken up at like 3:30 in the morning, and basically you lay there wide awake for the rest of the night. And you have a lot of time to just lay there and think, because it's hard to fall back asleep when you've got a kid that's sleeping there with you in the sleeping bag, and also it's cold out and everything else. So I was thinking about the kids and the way they play basketball now. And I was thinking about that in context as I watched the end of the first half of the NBA All-Star game, when Steph Curry and Damian Lillard basically started pulling up at half court and draining shots. And it reminds me of those of you who are old enough to remember the Rock and Jocks era of MTV, when they used to have the goal that would drop down and they had all the extra ways that you could score points based on when baskets were made. And they had the basketball goal, if I remember correctly, that was sky high. And you could get like whatever it was, 10 or 20 points if you could make a shot on one of those buckets high up in the air. And I wonder on some level whether the revolution that has occurred in basketball referencing precision shot making has not fundamentally altered the game forever. And this is why people get upset about this. But I have argued, if you coach young kids, what you learn teaching those young kids is that Steph Curry is by far the most influential player of his generation of basketball. And I understand that all the LeBron stans get upset about that. But kids see Steph Curry and they think, I could be him one day. Nobody sees LeBron James and thinks, I could be him one day. Because LeBron is such a physical freak. He's 6'8", 270 pounds, whatever the heck he is. And his stature is not commonplace. Much like people don't see Shaq, or they don't see Rudy Gobert, or they don't see any really big guy and think, hey, I could grow up to be that guy, because most kids know they can't. But they see Steph Curry, and he seems accessible in a way that big men don't. And by the way, this is nothing new. Michael Jordan was 6'6". Kobe Bryant was 6'6". Those guys are giants. When you would see them go on with David Letterman or Jay Leno or Jimmy Kimmel or whoever they would go on for late night talk, you would notice when they came out how much taller they were than everybody else. But on the basketball court, they seem like normal-sized humans, even though if you've ever stood next to any of these basketball players, you understand how freakish they actually are in terms of their proportions. There's one of those pictures that's great. I don't know how many of you have seen it, but of Shaquille O'Neal standing next to The Rock, and The Rock just looks like a kid next to Shaquille O'Neal, and I think everybody knows. The Rock was a defensive tackle at Miami. He's a beast of a dude, but standing next to Shaquille O'Neal, he looks ordinary sized. And that's because in the grand scheme of things, The Rock is an ordinary size. And so Steph and Damian Lillard and Klay Thompson and all of these long-range gunners have fundamentally changed the concept of basketball. And when I was a kid, we all wanted to be Michael Jordan. That was the Gatorade commercial, be like Mike. I'm telling you, as somebody who coaches Little League basketball, everybody wants to be Steph Curry. Everybody wants to take a shot as deep as they possibly can. As soon as you get kids on the basketball court, they run around and they find out how far they can be from making a shot, and they just start launching from distance. And I'm not talking about when we were kids, we would sometimes get in the gym, right? And we'd be like, okay, who can make a half-court shot? All these different things we would try to do. But there wasn't this idea of pulling up and shooting a jumper from near half court. That's what Steph and Damian Lillard were doing in the All-Star game. And I don't know that people really understand how incredible of a talent that is that those guys have developed. And it makes playing the game so much different. Now, we know the three-point shot in general has taken over basketball. There's almost no mid-range jumpers taken now. You either take a three or you get to the basket and you try to dunk or get a layup, right? The middle part of the game doesn't really exist. But to be able to recognize that there are opportunities to score just over half court and that you can shoot a high percentage from there because you get typically a completely clean look. And we started to see this last year in the NBA postseason down in the bubble, where if you were playing defense on Damian Lillard, you had to pick him up at half court, or as soon as he came across the line, he was ready to rise up and score, rise up and shoot. And so it's just really amazing to think about how much the game has changed as a result of the shooting talent of Steph Curry. And there isn't really anything in LeBron James's game that is changing the way that the game is played. Steph Curry and his ilk have fundamentally altered the game of basketball forever with the way that they play. And I'll build on that a bit in the next segment. But to me, what is also interesting about it is if you are a basketball fan, you probably, if you're around my age, remember growing up how incredible it was to watch the NBA All-Star Game dunk contest. Said Sabalos puts the blindfold on. D. Brown pumps up his shoes. Blake Griffin jumps over a car. Michael Jordan, obviously, from just inside the free throw line. Dominique Wilkins, Spud Webb, the game going on down in Atlanta, where Dominique Wilkins and Spud Webb are probably still the two most famous, for most people, Atlanta Hawks of all time, even though the Atlanta Hawks never win anything. And so the reason why I bring all of that up is, if you watched the All-Star Game dunk contest now, it's an afterthought. And what has become much more riveting television-wise is the three-point contest. Because the best players will actually compete in the three-point contest in a way that they won't in the dunk contest. So why is that the Steph Currys of the world will put their shooting acumen on the line when, by the way, we know that Steph Curry is a really, really good shooter? That's not a particular surprise, even if he were to lose. He didn't. But even if he were to lose the three-point shooting contest, he's still an incredible three-point shooter. And even if you lose the dunk contest, it doesn't mean you are not a great dunker. But the best three-point shooters seem eager to compete to prove that they're the best three-point shooter. The best dunkers, at least if they're popular players, seem to have no interest whatsoever in actually competing. Why is that? And why has that shifted? At what point did the three-point contest overtake the dunk as the most riveting part of the game of basketball? I think it's an interesting discussion, and I've got a thesis that I will share for you when we come back. And I appreciate, as always, all of you hanging out. Give you a roadmap of where we're headed. Only one guest in today's show. Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee is scheduled to join us in the second hour of the program. And I'm going to dive into this discussion a little bit as well as the NBA All-Star Game is going on, about the NBA's relationship with China and why it is such, still to me, a significant story in the larger landscape of sports and beyond.